The first tomatoes that were coming off my Roma tomato plants were quite a bit bigger than this, and as the life of the plant has gone on, these final ones are a lot smaller. So these are kind of a lot of work to go through the boiling and skinning process, and so I'll show you what I'm going to do with these smaller ones instead. The first thing that I did to preserve tomatoes this summer was to freeze some, and I skinned them and froze them whole. You skin them by cutting a little X in the end of them and then dropping them into boiling water for about 30 seconds. 30 seconds to a minute until you start to see the skins peeling back from that X mark, and then the skins will peel off really easily at that point. And I just packed those into quart freezer bags and froze those whole, and I'll pull those out in the winter to use as in recipes that call for diced tomatoes or whole tomatoes. What I decided to do with some more of these was just throw a bunch into the blender and blend them up, skins and all. And when you blend them like this, then the skins won't cause a problem. If you were to store these with the skins on and then go to cook them and use them later, what you'd find was these little curls of skin, almost like little parchment rolls or something, because they come off the tomato when you're cooking it, and then they kind of roll in on themselves, and then they're just kind of these tough bits that are in your dish, whatever it is. So that's why a lot of times we will skin them before storing them. But when I'm putting the whole thing in the blender, the skins are going to be pulverized, and so they won't cause that problem. And it is just one less step that makes the whole process a little bit shorter. And this is really good to use in particularly into like tomato soups or things. But if you want, you could take this at a later point and cook this for a good while to cook it down to more of a sauce, especially when I'm using all sauce tomatoes like these Romas. But if you have a lot of good Roma tomatoes, it doesn't hurt to throw in some of these other tomatoes as well. And sometimes that's really good in terms of flavor for a tomato soup or something to have. You can have a little bit of a mixed bag of tomatoes. Basically, freezing the tomatoes like this now is postponing the work of boiling it and making sauce out of it or whatever until a later point in the fall or the winter when I have time to do that, as opposed to having to do it right now in the middle of the summer. The last way that I preserved some tomatoes this summer was to sun dry them, but in actuality oven dry them. I just cut them in half, placed them on a sheet pan, sprinkled them with a little bit of salt, and dried them until they were not wet but still a little bendy. And I'm going to go ahead and store these in my freezer just to be on the safe side. If they're dehydrated fully, they can be shelf stable, or you can store them in a glass jar for a long time, but since I have a little bit of extra freezer space and I don't have a ton of these, I'm going to just store them in the freezer. These are some ways we'll be enjoying our bounteous tomato harvest in the middle of winter, when this summer garden is just a memory of our not so distant past.
These are my favorites. I'm a chipmunk. What would you say when I say doing? she can sit down now. No, she can sit down. Let's get this on Marco Polo, Mama. We have to get this on Marco Polo. Right, Mom? Get me, Ginny.